Hello everyone, Brian Hill with The Complete Combatant. I'm going to be covering a series of videos that will help you in my classes. Deliberate coaching, inner game of shooting, but more importantly will help you become the shooter that you always wanted to be. There's 4 mental steps to performance level, there's physical steps to it, and athletes stumble upon these, but you can have them automatically. They have been proven by neuroscientists to be the key for us to enter flow state or higher levels of processing for performance. So it sounds like a good deal. Okay, requires you to think deeply though, and to be ahead of the process, like all things in self-defense do. These 4 goals will be, our performance indexes will be clear goals, immediate feedback, stretching a little more than you're comfortable for, trying to achieve something, all right, and being fully present when you're here. We're going to talk about clear goals because this is the one to rule them all. I often ask people in class, what do you want to get out of your training? What do you expect? And they say, I want to be better. Don't we all? Yeah. It's the human desire to be better, but oftentimes we can't read the map that gets us to the place of it. Remember, you become whatever you're aiming at, pun intended. So we have to become better aimers. Part of the process of coaching yourself or being a coach for another person is to clarify the goals, to have a deep understanding of what a goal is, how to approach it, how to break it down, how to get the data to improve it, and how to practice for it. Now, this doesn't change. It doesn't matter whether it's shooting or martial arts or weightlifting. It's always the same, guys, in coaching. What I see a lot with this is a preference. You go and practice what you prefer. And when you do that, you get really good at what you prefer and becomes a huge strength to you. But the way to beat you is to drag you into your weakness, something that you're not good at, because that also is a tremendous lack in your ability to perform at a high level. We've all suffered that before. So training should clarify what we want to do and should help us fill in the weaknesses that are apparent. I'm going to give you a for instance in this. Last year I decided I wanted to work on my reloads. In my core 4, I have the 2 reload 2, which is also known as 4 aces. So I wanted to get better at that. I wanted to be able to do it on demand. I felt a lot of stress when I tried to do that. My scores were a little erratic on it. I'd grown up in the tactical environment where it had been preached over and over again that you always miss your first shot and you'll miss your first shot out of your reload. And that kind of sat in my craw. I don't accept that. It can't be that way. There are people that do it without any of that happening. So that bothered me. I want to get better at it, so I needed to explore it. I went and trained with AJ Zito and Tim Herron, and they both shoot 1911s, 2011s, and they're really good at reloading. Tim is left-handed, so they had a lot of information that I wanted. I was changing to the VP9 with the magazine-style release that is a paddle on the bottom, so I had some options, but I wasn't very good with it because I'd had tens of thousands of repetitions with a button. And so I had some physical changes to make, and I wanted to get the information from the experts so it would guide me and shortcut the process. Once I got done with class, I realized here's what I needed to practice. I was going to release the magazine with my trigger finger because I was averse to that originally until I was teaching AR class, and I looked up and there I was releasing the magazine with my trigger finger. So I realized that Brian Hill lives in a house of hypocrisy in that moment, and I could do both. So started changing, this hard change. I measured everything. It was interesting. There was a lot of things that I didn't know with 2 reload 2. Number 1 is how long does it take from concealment to move the garment and get the magazine out to the holster. We had really good metrics on it from open, where people were running competitive belts or with an open garment, and it didn't affect them very much. But with a closed garment like this, it's a big motion. Okay? So Ben Steger had put out 2.7 as a 4 aces for master level and shooter, but it was a little slower with concealment, so I started working on it. I reached out to a couple people I also knew that were working on it and asked them questions of what they were getting, and I decided I was going to work for at least a 3.5 consistently. And sometimes I get a 3.25, sometimes I get a 3. I had to look at what all the problems were, so I took a timer, I shot the drill at least 10 times, and I looked at each part of the data. I recognized 2 things that changed immensely that shouldn't. My draw to first shot on multiple shots was longer than it should be. It meant I was over confirming the sights. And then my reload was significantly slower, 2.5 seconds easy. So there was a big time on it. So I worked on those things. I did isolation drills where I just practiced getting the mag out and touching the mag well with it. Then I worked on just a drill where I would draw, fire 2, and do a reload. So it kept it simple. Then I worked the combination drill where I do the whole thing. I'd measure that. I'd look to see what it was. There were also some psychological and physiological stresses that went with this, so I had to address those. I wondered why people would miss on this drill so frequently because I would see it in my classes. So I really worked on the processing area, which was do each part of the sequence in order and pay attention to it. Try not to do two things at once. Helped tremendously psychologically because it gave me clarity. I visualized it. I felt how the magazine was going in, and I got better. And then physiological stresses were, since it's a long combination exercise, tension would creep into it. I hold my breath, I get tense, and what that would do is make me fumbly, and it would make it all very fragile in its training. So I worked on my breath. I worked on how little tension I could do it with. The clarity of goals allowed me to be able to perform this on demand in front of my students with usually 3 1/4 and 3 5. All right, which is not bad because I think it's at least half second for this motion. It's like 2 draws. So instead of just a quarter, I ended up with a half second on it. And I had to bump up the penalty from doing it from lack of concealment during the drill because it's a bigger motion than I thought. For most people, it's a big deal. So I clarified my goals. I worked on them. I approached the technical, the psychological, and the physiological, and it allowed me to guide my training. Mostly what I see with people that lack clear goals is they train just in the way they like to. All right. And that's a very dangerous thing because enjoyment comes and goes. Having a purpose, facing a challenge, will provide ultimately contentment and will help you address the weaknesses not only in that drill, but in yourself. So I want you guys to work on clear goals and understand what you do. If I ask you in class what's your goal, you should be able to answer it. And inversely, same thing. If you step up to the line and I ask you to do a drill and you don't understand, I haven't iterated what the clear goal is, you need to ask me in that moment, hey, what is the clear goal of this drill? What am I really working on? Is this speed and precision? Is this accuracy and precision? Is this speed and efficiency? Or is this a performance goal? And how do I get there? That'll help tremendously, guys. Once the brain understands the puzzle, it can go to work. But as long as the puzzle is upside down and we don't know what the final shape of it is, and we just say something very vague like I want to get better, there's no puzzle to work on, but there is a lot of outcome-driven disappointment. There's a lot of negative self-talk in that. Okay, I hope that helps you guys. My byline, I live it, I breathe it. I want you to measure, refine, and perform. Please do that with these videos, and I hope they will help you tremendously. All right, you can find us at thecompletecombatant.com. I'm Brian Hill, and as always, measure, refine, and perform.